Hello, this is a quick walkthrough on how to control plugin settings via a MIDI control surface that are a multi-state variable like this one where there's 3 discrete values, or there could be more, but they're quite different from the typical knob or slider type setting. There's a few ways to do this in Cantabile, and the first thing you need to do is make sure that this setting is accessible from the host. Now, most plugins automatically export most parameter settings to the host automatically, but in this case UVI doesn't. So in this case I'm just going to go to host automation and set that as automation parameter 1. Okay, and you'll see now that in the parameter editor this first parameter is connected to density, and by moving this I can change that setting. So the host now has a way to control this setting. Like I said, most plugins don't need to do this, but UVI and I think Contact and probably a few others, you need to manually set that connection up first. Okay, now that we've got that set up, we can look at the different ways to bind MIDI events to it. So I've set up a bunch of controllers here that will represent buttons and knobs on your actual MIDI control surface. I'm doing it on screen here so you can see what I'm doing. So the first way to do this would be to just bind a slider to that parameter, and the way you would do that is just go into here and go create parameter binding, move the source one, select it. If it has the wrong one selected here, you can move the setting in here and it should pick it up, and choose that you want to map it. So I'm saying here I want to map controller 16 from the on-screen keyboard to UVI Workstation's density setting, and then I just hit OK. And you'll see now if I move this slider I can control that setting. Okay, now this, as I mentioned, this slider would not typically be a knob or a slider on your actual MIDI control hardware, not an on-screen setting like this. That's kind of pointless, but it's just to demonstrate it. Okay, so that's one way, and if we look in the bindings tab in Cantabile here now, you can see that listed out: on-screen keyboard, channel 1, controller 16, bound to UVI Workstation, density. And this column here shows how to map the CC values, which go from 0 to 127, to the plugin parameter values, which go from 0 to 1. So we're saying map the whole range there. Okay, that's the standard typical way you would bind most parameters. That works with variable settings like these other parameters as well. Okay, so we're now going to look at how to do different types of bindings to these multi-state variables. So the next way to do it is to map a button. So I'm just going to switch this over to CC18 now. Okay, and I've got this configured as a button rather than as a slider, so it just sends 127 when it's pressed and 0 when it's released. So all I need to do now is change this controller, so this is no longer sending variable CC values, it's just sending push button events. So I'm just going to change this to a button, and we can say now what value we want to pass to the plugin. So if I was to put this on low and just press this button now, you'll see it switches to high. But one of the things you can do in Cantabile is you can set up a sequence of values in here. So if I put 0 for the bottom end of the value, which would be low, 0.5 for the middle value, and 1 for the top value, you can see now by repeatedly clicking this button, I can cycle through the different values. Okay, so that's a fairly easy way to get those 3 discrete values bound. Okay, the next way would be as if you have a control surface where you can map the value and the CC that a button sends. Here I've got CC19, and in each case they're sending a different value. So this first one is sending 0, the next one is sending 64, and the next one is sending 127. So all I need to do is set this as a normal controller, change to CC19, density, and you'll see that this is basically acting like the slider. It's one CC sending different values but from different buttons. So low, medium, high. So you can see they still work. Okay, so that way is good if you can configure your controller like that. Some controllers won't let you specify the value to send on a button though. So in this case we're going to use 3 different controllers, so CC91, 92 and 93. And each of these are configured just to send a typical on-off value. So they send 127 when they're pressed. And you'll see they're all customized the same, just with a different CC number in each case. So for this example, what we need to do is we actually need 3 bindings here. So we need to bind CC91, and we're saying that it's a button, and the value we want to put for this one is 0, and then we're just going to copy this a couple of times. So 92, and this one's going to be 93, and this one will send 0.5, and this one will send 1.0. Okay, and you see the same effect: low, medium, high. Okay, so there are 4 different ways to set up bindings between a MIDI control surface and a multi-state variable like this one. Okay, thanks guys, bye.